Hi, guys, and welcome to Open Mic with Aly and Michelle. We are live from the CPI studios right here in downtown Washington, D.C. We've had quite a week of not a lot of rest.
Right.
Lots of meetings. We've got a wonderful guest here. Why don't you go ahead and introduce him,
Oh
Aly?
my goodness, guys. We are so excited that you're here to join us. We have my dear friend and president and CEO at Competitive Markets Action and board secretary at the Organization for Competitive Markets, Marty Irby. Thank you for joining Open Mic Ladies.
You're a little outnumbered.
Thank you guys for having me today. I really appreciate it. Had a great week so far.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. You know we are the free speech platform, never muted, never censored. So let's go ahead and open the mic.
Red hat stays on, red hat stays on, red hat stays on, red hat stays on. Taking back our freedom, back to where we started. We're wearing our red hat tonight. It takes more than just a feeling. Oh, better be believing, and America's gonna be home.
What do you do when they try to cancel you? MAGA Nation, we cancel proof. My red hat stays on. My red hat stays on. You know I love God, but in Trump I trust. November 5th, he gon' ride with us. Our red hat stays on. Our red hat stays on. It's the mayor of Maggie,ville, the RNC king. 2024, freedom gon' ring. Mr. Red, White, and Blue. I'm still fighting for each one of you. And keep your red hat on.
All right, guys, back here in the studio. Now, I geeked out a little bit when you told me coming in here that this is a studio that many people have shot their podcasts in, right? Like some big names we would know.
Yeah, I think Senator Cruz, several others.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
All right.
We feel special.
We made them light it up pink.
Very, very privileged, yes, and we did make them do it pink as those signature colors. It's amazing to be here. This is my second time doing a fly-in.
Yes.
We're specifically here to advocate against the Save Our Bacon Act, which is beautifully acronymed because I think that does us a
SOB
good service, right? But it was previously known as the EATS Act. Can you just give our audience just a little bit of background on what that is?
Yes, absolutely. Well, this is the third Congress and third Farm Bill that I've worked on this issue over the last 12 years. So it's kind of been ongoing. But in the last Congress, it was known as the EATS Act. It's the Save Our Bacon Act. And then in the Senate, they have a Senate counterpart bill, S1326. Okay. The legislation actually is led by Congresswoman Ashley Hinson from Iowa, Senator Joni Ernst from Iowa. But we also have a huge contingency of Republicans that are against the legislation, along with Democrats. So it's a bipartisan effort to defeat it. We've got some great leaders, Anna Paulina Luna from your home state of Florida, as well as Nancy Mace from South Carolina, and David Valadao from California, who's actually a dairy producer.
Wow.
They all have been tremendous advocates and recently sent a letter to the House Agriculture Committee with 14 Republicans against having this legislation included in the Farm Bill. So ultimately, what they are trying to do with this legislation is nullify a California and a Massachusetts ballot measure that was passed roughly a decade ago.
So
or
is that
so.
like Prop 12 and
Prop
Question
12
3?
and Question 3, yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
People voted for these things in those states, right?
They did. They voted at the ballot box. This wasn't state legislature or regulatory. It was at the ballot box.
Well, our audience may not be pretty aware of what those two are. Could you give us just a little bit of a breakdown of what Proposition 12 is and Question 3 is?
Absolutely. So these pieces of legislation, and they are legislation even though were voted by the people and enacted into law, basically ban the sale of pork in those states that come from sows that were raised in what we call gestation crates. Gestation crates are a small metal crate that these pigs live in their entire life. They are not allowed to have any room to stand up, turn around, and they're basically either laying down or standing up in the same spot with no movement for their entire life while they're pregnant and while they're going through production and that sort of thing. So California's law actually only applies to whole cuts of meat. It's very difficult to measure this when you're talking about like hot dogs and sausage and things like that.
Right, because it's all ground up.
It is, it is. So it only applies to whole cuts of meat.
I can't imagine that's healthy for an animal. I mean,
No, not at all.
animal meat is
Right.
muscle meat. And so if you're not utilizing it, working it out, I can imagine it'd be kind of fatty and maybe not so great.
Well, and you also have to think about like these animals that are kept in extreme confinement conditions. There are a lot of hormones that are secreted when they're in duress or stress, and that can go into the meat. I know there are a number of farmers and doctors who have been studying this and even the effects and potential impact with like cancer and things like that.
Oh my goodness.
But this is how they breed and raise and produce pigs in China. And that's their big production model. They actually have what we call hog hotels, where you might have like a 10-story tall building with hogs in the building stacked on top of each other. And all of the feces from each hog goes all the way through the building down to the bottom of the ground. And then they have carp tanks where they're producing fish in the bottom. So that's actually what the carp eat. And that's what they're shipping around the world. And we don't want to see that happen in America.
No, right.
So the big thing is that these states, whether you agree with California or Massachusetts, they're liberal states. You may not agree with them, but they have the right to enact those laws, especially when it's at the ballot box by the voters. But there are tremendous other advocates, like the very conservative agriculture commissioner, Sid Miller from Texas. He's been a huge ally on our side of the issue fighting against it, because he said, look, I don't agree with California, but I don't want the federal government stepping in and doing the same thing to me and nullifying the state laws across the country with a one-size-fits-all policy that federalizes agriculture.
Right, right.
One of the things I think that we think about when we think about freedom, we think about the Civil War, we think about Abraham Lincoln. And the U.S. Department of Agriculture was actually started and brought together under President Abraham Lincoln, who we have here today. And farmers and consumers and producers and all the folks out there want to have that freedom to be able to choose the type of food that they want to buy and to be able to know what they're buying, have it labeled accurately. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. But we've got to make sure that we defeat this legislation. And unfortunately, some of our fellow Republicans, Chairman Glenn Thompson of the House Agriculture Committee from Pennsylvania, is a huge supporter of this. So we're fighting hard, pushing back against that.
I can't imagine why a Republican would be in support of China's practices with our.
We're taking away state sovereignty, because
that
as a
part.
conservative, at your core, you're supposed to want limited government and local
Absolutely.
action, national impact, right? Like
Right.
General Flynn says. So it's interesting that you bring this up, because I think our audience needs to understand it. Not every measure that we talk to our representatives about is a clear Democrat versus Republican issue. You've actually had bipartisan support on this, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, the opposition to the legislation is very bipartisan. And I think, in Washington, D.C., I hate to say this, but most of the time you can follow the money.
Yeah.
Smithfield is the largest pork producer in the United States of America. They are wholly controlled by the Chinese.
That means there's no American on their board.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
They may have one chief sustainability officer or something like that, I think.
Okay.
But you can even look at their website and see. But then you've got the number 2, 3, 4, 5 top pork producers in the country. Several of them were not typically aligned with JBS and Tyson, because one is a Brazilian-owned company and they're sort of control the market, kind of an anti-capitalism thing, in my opinion. But we have seen that even these people have stepped up and said, we're against this legislation, because they already spent the money, tens of millions of dollars, to convert their systems and their producer systems to be able to sell into California and to Massachusetts. And Florida actually has a law about this too. It doesn't apply to the sale, but it applies to the production. And it's about 20 years old, I think. So we're basically a coalition of 2,000 organizations across the country and 2,000 individual farms that are fighting against Smithfield. Wow. And it really does blow my mind that you think about allegedly conservative Republicans like Chairman Thompson, who are really pushing this, who have really dug in and just seem determined to be able to have this legislation enacted. I don't really know the reasons, because there is one of the top 5 or 6 pork producers in the country, Clemens Food Group and Hatfield Meats, that have producers in his district and are based in Pennsylvania that have been very outspoken against it. He's not listened to them. And then even Brent Hershey. So the name Hershey in Pennsylvania means something, right?
It does.
Yeah,
He is a Hershey Ag and is a pork producer, and he's very much against it. We had a press conference with about 200 farmers about a month or so ago, and he was here, had a gestation crate. But for whatever reason, the Ag Committee just doesn't seem to want to even negotiate on this thing. So it's really sad, and it applies to all meat and dairy products. Now, they did make an exception for eggs in this Congress, which is different from last year, but I think they could not find a single egg producer in the country that would support their position. And that part of the equation relates to chickens that are being raised and produced in what you call battery cages, where there's sometimes 6 stacked on top of each other in something the size of a microwave. We're past that point. Most of the country has gone cage-free, free-range, pasture-raised. And I would say, roughly, I think someone this week was talking about 40% of the producers in the country have already converted their systems.
Well,
so
that's an investment.
it's
Right.
huge,
That's
tens
for
of millions of
sure.
dollars. And if you see, the lay of the land, and if this were to pass, it would not only harm those farmers, potentially put many of them out of business,
Right.
but also give Smithfield the opportunity to come in and undercut their price
Yes.
if they can sell back into California, and then they can gobble up more of the market and further monopolize it.
Right, which, I don't think that's conducive for any farmer. Farmers are the backbone of American food.
Absolutely.
And if we can't determine where our food comes from or how it's raised here, and we're utilizing large corporations that are bought out by or owned by or governed by foreign countries, how does that benefit or make it better for American farmers or American families that potentially buy our food? I don't think that works. And then I feel like federalizing this one-size-fits-all kind of rule will make it easier for these foreign countries to come in and get into our food market a whole lot easier than going through 50 states.
Well, and that's what we heard from,
50 different
this is
markets.
my first time coming to talk about a bill like this here in Congress. But I'm glad that you brought in the small farmers, the independent farmers, ranchers, people that represent the production side of it, plus us representing consumers. Going in and sitting down and talking about this and hearing how the reasons why they oppose the Save Our Bacon Act, it opens your eyes, I think, as consumers out there. You have no idea what this is doing to our farmers. Can you share with us a little bit, because I know we don't have any of the farmers represented here, what some of their talking points have been on how they feel this hurts or hinders your mom pop farms or your farmers across the nation?
Absolutely.
From the heart of Marietta, Georgia, comes a tribute to the spirit of liberty. Liberty Cigars, where history meets craftsmanship. Each cigar tells a story. The Founders Collection honors the visionaries who shaped a nation. The President's House Collection celebrates the leaders who steered it. And the Naval Series salutes the heroes who defended it. Handcrafted with precision, each blend mirrors the essence of its namesake. From the boldness of George Washington to the elegance of Thomas Jefferson. Indulge in a moment of reflection. Light a Liberty cigar and savor the legacy. Discover your story at libertycigars.com, because every great nation deserves a great cigar. Liberty Cigars, smoke the history. And don't forget to use promo code OPENMIC for 10% off your order.
I've treated trauma in war zones, car accidents, backcountry rescues, you name it, and I often had to rely on inferior equipment. So when the folks at Jace Medical offered to help me build the medical kits I'd always dreamed of, I jumped at the chance. Let's start with the Jace Medic Kit. It's laid out for fast, intuitive access. It even includes a dedicated slot for the Jace case, your emergency supply of antibiotics. Next is the Jace Trauma Kit. This is for the most serious injuries, massive bleeding, chest wounds, burns, blunt trauma. We've also included a powerful lineup of over-the-counter and prescription medications. For everyday injuries, this is the Jace Aid Kit, your glove box, backpack, kitchen drawer essential. Compact, rugged, and packed with high-quality supplies. It's the first rugged kit combining prescription meds and premium first aid gear.
Visit patriot.tv/kit. That's patriot.tv/kit to get the only med kit on the market designed for real-world emergencies.
So we have about roughly 6,500 farmers and ranchers at the Organization for Competitive Markets Action, and they're all over the country. We've got a strong southeastern contingency and midwestern contingency. I mean, we had folks here this week from Wyoming, from Kansas, Alabama, many rural states, and they're the folks who have found these niche markets and made the changes in their operation because they were basically on their last leg already, because there's been so much consolidation in the marketplace. 4 big packers control the entire meat production system in the country.
Crazy.
So you've got Smithfield, Tyson, JBS, and Cargill. And of those 2, Smithfield is basically controlled by China, and JBS is owned by Brazil.
Right.
So that's half of the production right there just in the
gosh.
4 big packers. And these farmers, basically, there's a system. It's called vertical integration. It's very dominant in the poultry division. That's what we're now seeing with pork production, where they basically are enslaved to these big companies, and they have contracts. So they're contract growers, and they determine what type of feed you get, what type of vaccines, what type of anything that's injected into the animals, and you don't really have any say-so over that. So the farmers that are out there decided, look, we've had enough of this. We're going to move away from this model, and they started working to pass some of these laws in California and Massachusetts to open up new markets and create a space for them.
Right.
A lot of them are organic producers, if you've seen the organic label,
Right.
free range, pasture raised, as I said, and that's enabled them to finally make money. Now we see that their opportunities are growing and flourishing, and here comes the federal government. You know, what is President Reagan? He said,
Always here to help.
Run.
Knock. We're here to help.
so run.
Right.
But federalizing agriculture is just absurd. This actually went to the Supreme Court.
Okay.
I know Clarence Thomas, Amy Coney Barrett, and Gorsuch ruled with us to uphold those state laws. So that's why Congress is now going back, or attempting to go back behind the Supreme
Didn't
Court.
they lose like several times?
They did. I think there have been over 20 total cases, but that was the primary about 2 years ago decision
Okay.
with the Supreme Court case. There's been district court, state level lawsuits, and all sort of things. And I believe they've lost every single lawsuit.
Right.
No telling how many millions of dollars they've spent. But even Coney Barrett talked about this, I believe, in her remarks that, okay, you start nullifying state laws across the country. We're just talking about agriculture and
Just one
pork
thing,
and meat and
yeah.
dairy.
Right.
What's next? Abortion laws?
exactly.
State abortion laws. You know, that's something
Education.
that was mentioned, you know, in the
Right.
brief. So
Yeah, that's very true. So it's called SOB, Save Our Bacon Act. We're against it, but what we were finding when we were talking to many of the representatives is that it's not going to be necessarily introduced by itself. It could be slid into a potential farm bill. So a lot of our viewers might be unaware of what the farm bill is. Is it something we'll see this year? And if so, why would they slide something like this in it?
yeah, absolutely. So it was introduced as a standalone bill. Most of the standalone bills out there never see the light of day.
Right.
They never get committee action. Some of them are messaging bills. Some of them you're looking for a piece of legislation that you know is moving that you can attach it to
Okay.
as an amendment or a rider. And about every 5 or 6 years, we have a farm bill. The farm bill actually expired last September. They extended it for a year. The House Ag Committee has just completely been in disarray and has not gotten their act together.
My goodness.
It's really kind of sad and pitiful, to tell you the truth. But they will at some point hopefully produce a farm bill. That 1-year extension expired right before the government shutdown started, the end of this
course
September.
it did.
So now farmers are operating with really no active legislation. There's sort of a 3-month window between now and the end of the year, from October 1st to the end of the year, where the prices and some of the subsidies and things like that stay the same. But if Congress doesn't make either an extension or pass some sort of farm bill by the end of the year, then it reverts back to the old laws from like the 1920s and 30s, which is, you know, not legislation I think that would be so applicable today or modernized. And when you think about machinery, equipment,
Right.
the amount of food we're producing across the country. So they're trying to include this in that legislation. In the last Congress, they did produce a farm bill in the House that they passed through committee. They included a previous iteration of the Save Our Bacon Act. And it was really, you know, kind of just jammed through. They had heard from, I think, 26, 28 House members that they were against this in previous letters. And some of the members of Congress that were with us last Congress have left and didn't run for re-election, things like that. But it's kind of something that they're just trying to like shove down the throats of the consumer and the farmer.
Yeah.
So there was something that was talked about a lot in our meetings was MCOOL. Could you kind of go into a little bit more depth of what that actually is and how it benefits our farmers?
Absolutely. So MCOOL is mandatory country of origin labeling. And I actually worked in Congress on Capitol Hill in 2014 or 15 for a Republican from Kentucky, Ed Whitfield, handled his agriculture issues. And I was there when Congress voted to repeal country of origin labeling. So it was previously something that we had in the United States. Of course, the U.S. is part of the World Trade Organization. I think they don't have near the impact they did back then with President Trump in office. But at that time, we were basically seeing threats from Mexico and Canada that the U.S. was in violation of some of the agreements and could potentially have billions of dollars of fines because of this. Now, we label lemons, we label fish, we label everything else
Teddy
where it
bears.
comes from. But when you go to the store and you buy a steak, you're probably not buying American beef. You're probably buying beef that was raised in Brazil, some South American country, maybe even potentially Canada. And the labels are just not there because of the repeal of country of origin labeling. And what we saw when that happened a decade or so ago is the cattle markets fell and dropped, because then they could ship in all of that beef that could be guised as U.S. beef and sold to the consumer. Basically, it's a flat out lie at the end of the day.
Right.
And it was labeled in many instances product of the USA, even if the cow was raised, slaughtered, and the steak was cut in Argentina or Brazil. As long as it was packaged on the styrofoam tray with plastic, it was considered a product of the
Oh my
USA.
gosh.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
And so, as a mom,
Yeah.
you're walking, you're pushing your cart, you're going through, you're looking at all the meat. You look for that product of the U.S. And
Yes.
I just feel right at home thinking not only am I shopping, America first, but I'm also, I feel like I know what that animal's been fed. I know the what's been allowed to be injected in it, and hopefully what hasn't been injected in it.
Right.
Not so much. So what does this do? I can imagine how this pisses off our local farmers, because it's not a level playing field. That trademark of made in the U.S. is the one thing that our farmers have here in this country, and it's like it's being taken away.
Yeah, it's definitely not America first. And I think the producers, they have such a powerful voice when they're here and they come, and this is maybe the 6th fly-in we've had in 2.5 years or so. But it's hard for them to leave the farm or the ranch for 8 or 10 days and go somewhere. They usually come 3 to 5 days here, and I can't tell you how many farmers have even spent the time to come here and lost animals on their farm because they weren't there, and they lose money by coming.
Yeah,
But
no, they do.
we've tried to help them actually have a voice, because most people don't realize, they think, okay, the Farm Bureau is the voice of farmers. The Farm Bureau is an insurance company. If you go look at their membership, there are far more members that are part of the Farm Bureau that have insurance through them than there are actual farmers.
That's interesting.
That is wild.
And it's really sad. It's your typical DC swampy, lobbying conglomerate.
Yep.
And these farmers have been co-opted. Their voice has been hijacked.
Yeah.
And ultimately, these entities that are lobbying are doing the bidding of the big corporations like Smithfield.
Yeah, big ag.
So now that you bring up that portion of it, can you talk to us about the OFF Act?
Yes.
What is that exactly?
I know, we're learning all these acronyms.
I know.
We're like,
You'll catch up. It's okay.
Well, it's probably the most complicated issue I've ever worked on in agriculture, but the Opportunities for Fairness in Farming Act was reintroduced this Congress by Congresswoman Nancy Mace from South Carolina, who's running for governor, along with Dina Titus from Nevada. It's bipartisan legislation. And then this is going to get you. So I know you guys have heard this, but in the Senate, it is led by Senator Mike Lee from Utah, Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky, along with Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey, and Elizabeth Warren from Massachusetts.
they agree on something.
All
Wow.
4 of them. I usually, reporters are like, what?
Yeah. No,
So it
really.
gets people's attention.
Yeah.
And they come at it from different reasons and different angles. But at the end of the day, every farmer that sells a cow is required to pay into the checkoff fund by federal law $1 per head when they sell it. There's also an amount that you have to pay based on the fluid weight of milk. We have blueberry checkoffs. We have Christmas tree checkoffs. There's really no rhyme or reason as to why we have some and others, but poultry does not have a checkoff. So when Congress enacted legislation to bring these checkoffs together, they forced the farmer to pay a tax. And the Supreme Court has, in another decision, also deemed that a tax, even though it's paid to the USDA, not the IRS.
Wow.
And then,
Interesting.
yeah, so they're forced to pay that money. Then they go into, let's just use the beef checkoff, for example, who contracts with the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, NCBA. And they have been, time and time again, we've seen scandal after scandal where they've been illegally using these dollars to lobby the federal government. You're not supposed to be able to use federal dollars to lobby the federal government.
Right.
I think they probably feel there's some sort of loophole because it's case law with the Supreme Court. So the OFF Act, one of the things it does is it codifies that Supreme Court decision that just underscores and says that you can't use these dollars for lobbying. It also requires an Office of Inspector General audit of the checkoffs. They're the only, we can go online, we can see how much we're spending in just about every category, federal spending across the board.
Yeah.
But you cannot go find out and publicly see, not just the general public, but even the very farmers that pay into the checkoff funds, where their money is going.
Oh, no.
And NCBA and the National Pork Producers Council and the dairy checkoff, all three have really fought us at every turn on trying to get an audit.
I wonder
What
why.
do you have to hide? Why not? Why
Right.
would you not want to have an audit?
What were these funds originally supposed to be used for? The idea that you're paying this fund in as farmers. I heard somebody say in one of the meetings, is it kind of like supposed to be more of a marketing tool?
It was. So they were intended to be marketing tools. Okay, bring Uncle Sam into the mix and think that's going to help you market your product.
So, like, where's the beef?
Yes. Where's the beef is
From.
actually, it literally, that was one of the checkoff slogans back in the day.
Okay.
Pork, the other white meat.
Right,
The
okay.
incredible edible
Got milk.
egg, got milk. Those
Okay,
are what
okay.
checkoffs were supposed to be. Now, if you look across the board at meat production and consumption, you see that beef and pork and all of these other commodities have declined. But guess what? Chicken that has no checkoff has
no checkoffs.
skyrocketed. So they're doing their job, taking care of their business in private enterprise, and they don't need the government getting in the mix of it. So, I think that's a perfect comparison to see why we should not have the government involved in this. Now, many of the farmers would say, okay, we should have legislation to make the checkoffs voluntary. I completely agree with that. But we went down that road. We had a voluntary checkoff act, did not get any traction. So the off act is, I don't want to call it a compromise, but it's something that we feel like stands a lot better chance of getting done, because once we ever get that OIG audit, then I think that's going to tell the tale, and that's going to be the end of all of this cronyism, all of this corruption, and everything we've seen.
It kind of fits in with the theme for the Trump administration with Doge this and Doge
Right,
that.
right.
Let's audit the heck out of it.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, yeah.
No, so we've also talked about national security. We've talked about cybersecurity. And while General Flynn, who is on the board of Moms for America and works closely with us, and on Patriot TV, who gives us this lovely platform, by the way, thank you. He wrote an op-ed about this and essentially blew the whistle and was like, look, if you have a foreign entity that owns, a big corporation with food, you kind of open up yourself to national security issues, because
Well, what could possibly go wrong?
Right.
We got all of our PPE from China during COVID. A lot of our medicines. So we just don't want to have to go to them for my.
They were trying to
burger
buy
either.
up farmland by like military bases, which is very detrimental if you're trying to
Yeah, absolutely.
do some secret squirrel stuff.
But what's
Like, you
nice
never
is
know.
that Florida was able to lead the way in putting a stop to that, and that's why I think every time we've met with somebody, a representative, we've been able to say, I think if you're a conservative, you should understand that. Don't mess with our state sovereignty, even when it comes to food. Right?
From the heart of Marietta, Georgia, comes a tribute to the spirit of liberty. Liberty Cigars, where history meets craftsmanship. Each cigar tells a story. The Founders Collection honors the visionaries who shaped a nation. The President's House Collection celebrates the leaders who steered it. And the Naval Series salutes the heroes who defended it. Handcrafted with precision, each blend mirrors the essence of its namesake. From the boldness of George Washington to the elegance of Thomas Jefferson. Indulge in a moment of reflection. Light a Liberty cigar and savor the legacy. Discover your story at libertycigars.com, because every great nation deserves a great cigar. Liberty Cigars, smoke the history. And don't forget to use promo code OPENMIC for 10% off your order.
I've treated trauma in war zones, car accidents, backcountry rescues, you name it. And I often had to rely on inferior equipment. So when the folks at Jace Medical offered to help me build the medical kits I'd always dreamed of, I jumped at the chance. Let's start with the Jace Medic Kit. It's laid out for fast, intuitive access. It even includes a dedicated slot for the Jace case, your emergency supply of antibiotics. Next is the Jace Trauma Kit. This is for the most serious injuries, massive bleeding, chest wounds, burns, blunt trauma. We've also included a powerful lineup of over-the-counter and prescription medications. For everyday injuries, this is the Jace Aid Kit, your glove box, backpack, kitchen drawer essential. Compact, rugged, and packed with high-quality supplies. It's the first rugged kit combining prescription meds and premium first aid gear.
Visit patriot.tv/kit. That's patriot.tv/kit to get the only med kit on the market designed for real-world emergencies.
right?
Well, when you control the food, you control the people. And we're currently seeing that with the government shutdown and how the Democrats on the Senate side are like, well, we understand people are going to go hungry, but that's the leverage we're going to be able to use. And can you imagine if, China gets a wild hair up their nose and they're like, well, we don't like what American government is doing. Let's hold back on giving them food or access to our farms that we've, bought out in their land of America. I mean, I don't think any foreign country should own American land, do you? That just doesn't make sense.
Marty, this is such an orchestrated event, what we've taken place over the last 5 or 6 days. This has taken a lot of work. And I'm amazed at what goes on behind the scenes to be able to get we the people involved in our governance. This is how it's meant to happen, but I think it's always astonishing to somebody on the first time going through it, or maybe you sitting at home hearing us explaining it. I have to know, just to back up a little bit, how did you get involved? First of all, how did you get to DC? And how did you get involved? Because this is not something easy. It's not a light task that you're taking on.
No, it's not. It's actually an interesting story I'm writing a book about.
Oh, good.
But about 12 years ago, I was the president of the Tennessee Walking Horse Breeders and Exhibitors Association. Okay. And they have a terrible practice called soring, S-O-R-I-N-G, where they hurt horses' feet to make them lift their legs higher. And the horse that has the biggest step or highest step wins the prize. And there was an undercover expose about this in the industry, and I was president, actually in Germany at the time when ABC Nightline did a national expose, and basically stood up for the horses, which many of the horse trainers and even people in my own family didn't like too much, and kind of became that outcast or black sheep as a result of that. This then, I think probably 6 months later, fast forward to the fall of 2013, when the last time we had a huge shutdown like this, well, it wasn't the last time, but it was the first time we'd had one in decades. In the fall of 2013, I was asked by Congressman Whitfield to come testify in Congress about this issue, and I agreed. I made the mistake of telling a few people that I was going to testify in Congress, so I started getting death threats, all kind of stuff that happened. And I came to D.C. At that time as a result of my stance, standing up, speaking out for the horses. I lost everything I had. It's like a bad country music song. I got divorced. My wife and I split up. I filed bankruptcy, lost everything I had. My father and I didn't speak for 5.5 years over the issue. And at the end of the day, I came to testify. They had the government shutdown, and I was basically kind of like stuck here, waiting for the hearing to take place. So Congressman Whitfield said, Marty, you know what? Why don't you just stay here, stay with me and my wife? They're like my adopted parents now, I would say. And I stayed with them during that time. I think it was about like 3 weeks or so, and we got 100 co-sponsors on this bill. I don't even know if I knew what a lobbyist was at that time.
Right.
But I hadn't had people tell me I should be a lobbyist. So.
I think that's usually how that works.
And it's unheard of to get 100 co-sponsors on a bill in that short of a period of time. But the staff were gone. It wasn't like it's been this week. There were hardly any staff there. The members of Congress were sitting in their office just waiting. They weren't out of town and kind of twiddling their thumbs. And the congressman kept giving me members' cell phone numbers. So I would call them and stop in and talk to them and individually, meet with them. And then the government reopened. We had the hearing, testified, did all of that. Worked with a lot of veterinarians around the country that had testified and had the mainstream and like 99% of the whole horse industry with us. But this one faction that does this abuse is very rogue. There was actually a man murdered over in the 1970s, George Lee Lennox. The man that Elvis Presley bought his Tennessee Walking Horse from was murdered over this issue.
Really?
And so we, but I'm sitting there. This has happened. I'm getting more death threats. And then Congressman Whitfield says, well, you can't go back home. You've lost everything. They're going to murder you in Tennessee. Why don't you just stay here and come work for me? So I said there was a guy who had actually just left like a couple weeks before to go run for Congress in California that worked for him. So I took his like low level, the lowest paying job I made less than I think I made in college. And ended up moving up, over the next couple of years through the ranks, ultimately became his press secretary and communications director. And then when he retired, and was leaving Congress, I had to figure out what I was going to do next. So I went to work for a couple of different nonprofits, lobbying, working on a lot of these agriculture issues and a lot of animal welfare related issues. And then about 2.5 years ago, I started my own lobbying firm, Capital South LLC, and Competitive Markets Action, which is the 501c4 nonprofit sister org to the Organization for Competitive Markets. And I didn't really have a vast knowledge of agriculture issues when I started working on the issues in Congress. I learned a lot, but it really spoke to me. It was a God thing, like no one is defending
absolutely.
these people. Their own members of Congress have sold them out. These corporations have taken over their lives, and it just felt like a good cause, that was the right thing to do. And they, the farmers I represent, and myself have suffered a lot over that because the powers that be that control agriculture have come and attacked us. They even hired a PR firm to try to destroy my name.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Yes.
Well, and so to see the way you operate, to see the way you do this, to see the effect you have, and to hear your story, it is the opposite idea of what I've always had of lobbying. Lobbying always comes across as this 4-letter word. And I'm sure there are those that do it that way, but why have we gotten that kind of idea, I guess, about lobbying when really that is what we're supposed to be doing with our government all along, is lobbying them to do the will of the people, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think, that term lobbyist or lobbying, for whatever reason, has a negative connotation. I don't know if you guys know where that term actually came from.
No.
But after the Civil War, when Ulysses S. Grant was president,
Okay.
he stayed at the Willard Hotel, which is down by the White House. And all of these people would come to try to effectuate change the policies, come up with new laws. And they were in the lobby and lobbied him. And that is where the word lobbyist came
No
from.
way.
And they were
Interesting.
constantly in the lobby. There's a little bar over there, too. So that's where the word lobbyist came from. And, I like the term advocacy or advocates,
Yes.
but basically if you're a constituent, you're an average American person, you're a mom
you.
for America, and you're not getting paid anything, you're an advocate.
Yes.
Lobbyists are typically the ones that are paid, and we have to register, go through government
Right.
process and all that sort of stuff. But I think the two terms kind of get used both ways a lot. For me, it was just something that happened. I don't think any kid ever in the history of the world has said, I want to be a lobbyist when I grow up, or if they even knew what that was.
Did you?
Right.
No, not at all. Not at all. I was very interested in politics. Was
Yeah.
chairman of the Young Republicans in Alabama back in my 20s, and my great grandfather was in politics. But you get into it, and it's fun. I love doing it. It's
You're
not
good at
like
it.
work. Yeah,
You
it doesn't
really
feel
are
like
good at
work.
it. And it's
But
fun.
you're a teacher at it too, and that's what I love, is that if you're bringing people in, you might as well work together. We all have learned from each other, I believe, throughout
Yes.
the course
Yes.
of the last
Yeah.
4 or 5 days. So you felt it was important, not just this year, but I know in years prior, to work with Moms for America. Obviously, Aly, as the Director of Civic Engagement for Moms for America, we're very thankful for all that moms do, Moms for Liberty, Moms for America. But tell us why it was so important for you, not only because Aly's a rock star, but why was it so important for you to partner with Moms for America and bring moms into the fold in this kind of argument?
Well, first, let me say you two are amazing. Both of you guys did the most amazing job talking, being very clear, concise. I do have people that come in town and they just kind of meander all over the place and that sort of thing. You have to sort of steer them in the right direction because you only have typically 30 minutes. In a
Right.
meeting.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
if
yeah.
Sometimes
that.
15.
Sometimes
the last
15.
time we were here, we had 80 meetings in 4 days. And by the time we were done, I was talked out.
And their eyes glaze over sometimes 2 minutes in, so you're like trying to get the points out.
Yeah, no, and it's very important because that's a very short window to be able to talk about what we're talking about now and cover these issues. And of course, we've been primarily focused on the Save Our Bacon Act, but I think it was very important and still is because Moms for America brings 500,000 moms to the table.
Yes.
And I hate to say this, I love the farmers I represent, but I think Congress has very little respect for the average American farmer. It's kind of sad to see, and they're not scared of the farmers. They're scared of
They're
y'all.
scared of women.
I have
They're
seen
scared of the
it
moms.
is a huge difference.
Yeah.
You
Click,
guys
click,
are
click
on
of
the
the heels.
phone, you're at the kitchen table, and I know how many of them said, please don't let them light up my phones. Like, what do we need to do to help?
Yes.
So I have never seen a segment or a group like you guys that Congress was actually afraid of. People forget. Congress and the administration and all these federal employees, they work for us.
Yes.
We don't work for them. And a lot of times they have the opposite attitude.
Yeah.
And they think they're doing you a favor or something like that.
Right.
So I've been proud to be working together with you guys and Moms for America, and it has made a tremendous difference.
Yeah.
Plus, we can listen to the farmer, you can listen to me, but the moms are the ones who go buy the food at the grocery store.
Absolutely.
They are the ones doing the shopping. You guys
Doing the cooking.
read the labels.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so important.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, and moms have been, let's face it, moms, your faith community, they've been activated these last few election cycles to go to the ballot box, to knock the doors. I mean, we are the hands and feet sometimes in the community. And I think that's why we always try to leave the conversation with representatives if there's anything we can do for you, because obviously what they're worried about is potentially their next election or support on any bills that they're going to introduce. So it goes beyond kind of how you're trying to educate them on what you'd like for them to do, but what can we do for you? It's kind of reciprocal.
It is reciprocal, and that's why at Moms for America, with my civic engagement classes, we try to teach our moms, or we do teach our moms. We're very effective at it, actually. We teach them proper roles of government and proper roles and responsibility of our own governance, because we have to give consent in order to be governed. But our government only works if we work it. You know, Benjamin Franklin, when the Constitution was ratified, was asked, well, what do we have here? And he said, a republic if you can keep it. Well, what does that mean? It means that you have to work your government. Yes. And we have to apply our political pressure at the appropriate political pressure points in order to move the needle. And moms know how to do that because we wear all the hats. Right. And everything is a mom issue: faith, family, food, finance, freedom, and education. It literally touches every kitchen table topic. So,
and I think sometimes part of what I felt here being here this last week is that DC's like anything else. It can become an echo chamber.
Yes.
And when you're constantly surrounded by people who do what you do here in DC, I think it might be a little bit refreshing to have somebody who's, like you said, purchasing this in the grocery store, maybe clipping coupons, maybe trying to plan out a week's worth of meal prep. To hear our perspective on it might be a fresh reminder to say, oh my gosh, yes, these people are out there. They care about this. This is what's important to them, because these representatives are not necessarily out in your local grocery store near us, shopping for food, because they have a job to do here. So it's been amazing that you've invited us. I love that you included local ranchers, you included moms, and then you provided an educational element to this. And so you went above and beyond, I think, in this. This was amazing.
Now, one of my questions, though, is what has been the pushback? Yeah. And why do you think they're pushing back so hard?
I think the pushback is in part, okay, California's a liberal state, Massachusetts is a liberal state, and they don't like their policies. I don't always, and many times, probably more times than not, don't agree with those two states and their policies.
Right.
But they have the right to make those decisions. So it's a little bit kind of getting at California, but at what cost are you doing that? Federalizing agriculture, basically going to add to the national debt, because they're going to have to ramp up enforcement at USDA if they do that. So that's more tax dollars that we'll be spending.
Right.
And then I think ultimately follow the money. And I'm just going to say it, a lot of campaign contributions that come from these big corporations to people on both sides of the aisle.
It's like pharma all over again.
Yes. And it's really sad to see, because so many members of Congress have sold out the American people. But I'll tell you, I think one thing that I look at, and from you guys being moms, is two of my absolute favorite members of Congress in the House are Anna Paulina Luna and Nancy Mace. And they're both younger, vibrant moms who, Anna just had a young child, and Nancy has 2 children. They've been tremendous leaders on this issue, but they go do the grocery shopping.
Right.
Amen.
And we need more people like you guys and like them in Congress. And I think it has made a big impact, because they'll roll up their sleeves and work, and
Let's go.
it's
We do it.
Yes. You guys remind me of them. You don't have the same sort of aura and work ethic, and just never stop. And we need more people like that. There's so many members of Congress, the swamp rats, I call them, that have been here a long time and kind of get lax and used to things. And I don't even know if they realize and understand, and many times they probably don't, that the Farm Bureau is more of an insurance company than representing farmers, or that the National Cattlemen's Beef Association only represents less than 10% of the actual beef producers out there, a faction of it. Even some of the pork production companies left the National Pork Producers Council last year over this issue, and they split and started Pork Producers of America, their own new trade.
Like their own America First.
Well, I mean, that kind of brings me to this point where 2 points to make, because when you bring that up, it reminds me of teachers' unions. I mean, Michelle and I were just talking about this with you. It reminds me of teachers' unions, and how teachers' unions, it's like a mandatory buy-in in most places, where you have to give in your tax dollars, not your tax dollars essentially.
Well, they deduct their dues. Some districts right from their paycheck.
And then the money is used to disenfranchise them. It's used against their interests as far as teachers go. They hold up their agreements as far as payment goes and things like that. And they're like, oh, our teachers aren't getting paid. And the teacher's like, yeah, but we're giving you half our check. But what's happening? Nothing's changing. And then when you federalize, and like you talked about federalizing agriculture, well, we saw what the federalization of education did to education.
And now we're having to undo
it. And so, what would federalizing agriculture actually do to agriculture? I mean, when big government gets involved, the little man always suffers.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen that time and time and time again. And if we're sitting here saying that we don't want socialism, we don't want communism, like we have currently these mayors and these governors that have been getting elected that are claiming to be Democrat socialists that literally have Marxist ideology and communist ideology taking over. What do you think federalizing education and federalizing agriculture is actually going to do? That's communism.
Definitely
And
don't
we can't do that.
You don't want your food source wrapped up in that. I want to tie in because recently Trump had a press conference, an announcement with regard to, I think it's part of the trade deals that he's making. Was it Argentina?
Yeah, Argentinian
Yes.
beef.
So was there alarm by the ranchers community, and how does this play into everything?
There was. So he made a statement after meeting with the president of Argentina that the U.S. was going to start importing beef from Argentina. Okay. Well, we already import beef from Brazil and I think 20
other countries.
Okay, yeah.
And
did y'all know that? I bet you didn't.
I didn't. I wrote it down.
And there was, I would say, a tremendous uproar. I had more calls in like a 3-day period than I've ever had on any agriculture issue ever, because most of these farmers in rural areas are Republicans. They supported President Trump. I'd say it's like, 8-2 when you're talking about farmers that are Trump supporters or not. And so, they felt like they got a little jab there. But this week, what we've heard from those ranchers is, okay, you know what? Fine, bring it. Bring Argentina beef. But label it with mandatory country of origin labeling, and we'll kick their butts because our beef's better than theirs.
Right.
And people know the difference when they taste it, and they can look at the meat and the marbling and that sort of thing. Well, so it's been interesting to hear.
Maybe it's a segue. Maybe it's a segue.
I think it is. I think it is. And when we spoke with Representative Hageman, who's one of my favorites,
who showed up. I mean, she was there,
and I was
in person.
She's like, "Oh, I remember you. You were at the executive order signing with President Trump about the, no boys and girls sports." And I was like, "I'm so glad you remember me." It was so awesome. She's amazing. But she said that it's mostly status quo with bringing in Argentinian beef because they're only really going to use it because it's not great beef. They're using it for ground beef, ground meat, and it's really lean, and so they're gonna cut it with other things like fattier meat or whatever. But she mentioned that when we were in the office, and she agrees with MCOOL. Wasn't she the one who introduced that bill into Congress?
She did just introduce a bill to help address some of these issues with country of origin labeling. And people don't think about this. So you buy hamburger meat, and I won't go down the road about hamburger meat, but just what you buy that could have been at Whole Foods might be collectively a part of 100 different cows. So then when you ship in ground beef from Argentina, again, what is it? What's even in it? Who knows? So
what were they eating?
Yeah, we can compete.
Were they vaccinated? What were they vaccinated with? Like, I don't know if that's Maha compliant.
And I'd rather have all of the meat from one cow because I know where that cow came from.
Right.
Versus sort of a giant question mark. But
label it.
Yes, absolutely. Just label it.
Transparency. I mean, we want transparency in government, right? With DOJ. We want transparency with, our medical industry. Why would we not want transparency with our food?
And we want smaller government to stay out of our day-to-day lives. Throughout the United States, we voted for this on a mandate November 5th. I mean, he's won by large margins. And so this doesn't tie in with, I think, the sentiment of America First.
Not at all.
Anything. But so going back to kind of what we're doing here with being able to talk to our representatives about this, a lot of people are watching this going, man, I wish I could do something. I wish I could do something. They can't necessarily come here to Washington, D.C., but there is always sort of that call to action that Aly and I like to wrap up our message with, because there is something for them to do. So if you're retired in Florida, you're no longer retired. You've got something to do. You can send emails. You can make telephone calls. What do you think people can do now that they're educated on what the Save Our Bacon Act is and what's going on with our food and what's being done to ranchers across the country? What can they do to best get involved?
I think that's huge, tremendously important. Yeah. Retired or not, whether you're at home, if you will just pick up the phone and call 202-225-3121. That's 202-225-3121 and ask for your member of Congress. If you don't know who it is, you can give them your zip code and they will tell you that's the Capitol switchboard. And tell them to oppose the Save Our Bacon Act and any farm bill that contains it, and to support mandatory country of origin labeling for beef. If you guys will do those two things, it'll impact you at home, what you're buying in the grocery store. And then after you've done that, remember you have 2 senators too.
Yes.
Call back and call 202 202-224-3121, 202-224-3121, and ask to talk to both of your senators. So I hope everybody will make 3 calls because you have 1 representative and 2 senators. But even if you just make 1, that helps. And we need more calls into the House than we do the Senate, because that's really where we're seeing a lot of these efforts to try to undermine our farmers. The Senate is always kind of a cooling off place, and there are cooler heads that prevail there sometimes. So please do take that action, make that call. It will make a difference for you.
And what we like to do as well is follow up with an email. Follow up with an email, and at least do it once or twice a week, I like to say, because you want to continue to be a touch point. You want to, I don't want to say make it impossible for them to conduct daily business, but you want to be known, right?
At least make their mailbox full.
Right, and
bit of
get
an
5 or 10 other people to do the same thing. It's really not that hard. You're on your freaking phone anyway. I mean, we've done it. We've done it at
Live in front of audiences.
Yes, we literally called Chuck Schumer's office in front of a crowd of 500 people and told them to reopen the government.
Put them
and
on
pass
speaker,
the
kind of like this.
Love that.
Because, I mean, that's just what you do. I mean, you have to work your government or your government will work you. We the people are the largest lobby, right? We the people are the largest special interest group. And if we aren't the ones doing it, then somebody else is. And they may not have our best interest at heart. So make sure that you are the sharpest tip of the spear in your circle of influence, because local action equals national impact, and not just your federal representatives and senators. Call your local backyard representatives and senators, because they are supposed to work in conjunction together.
Well, that was going to be my next question. See, we share the same brains.
We really
It's
do.
very scary. Yeah. Because I would like to know if you have an opinion on what states can do. I know in Florida, we are getting ready to go into session here shortly. Is there something that our state legislatures can do to sort of get this out, so they're not preemptive by the federal government? Shouldn't we also be taking the things we're doing federally and putting measures in statewide?
And what role does the AG play in all this?
Well, some
in your
of our
states,
people,
right?
Nationally, the AG does on the state level. Nationally, some of our folks met with the Attorney General's office here a couple days ago on some of these issues. But I do think states are important. It's, kind of a hodgepodge, because some states have session every other year.
Yeah, that's true.
Some of them have 3-week sessions. Some of them have 1-year-long sessions. But what I would say, the one thing that they could do to really send a message to the federal government is to pass resolutions condemning legislation like the Save Our Bacon Act, or condemning the actions of these members of Congress who are trying to federalize agriculture. Because ultimately, now we talked about the ballot box and those laws, but the state legislatures, how many have they passed of those 1,000 laws?
Yeah.
Maybe 90% of them were passed by state legislatures.
Right.
So then the federal government is also undermining the very state legislators are voting. So I think that
Get on the
sends
record.
a strong message. Get on the record. Talk to the press. Write op-eds about these issues. Write a letter to the editor. And specifically, the state legislators can call their members of Congress too.
Exactly.
Yes.
Because they're supposed to work in conjunction.
And I know this is a little bit off topic, but it just popped into my head, and sometimes things are like, we have squirrel moments on the show. I've noticed, Marty, a complete decline in our area of remember those wonderful 4-H clubs that we would have in the schools? Somebody had mentioned in one of the sit downs that we had that they feel that we need to work in immigration, almost like illegal immigration, into being allowable somewhat for those migrant workers that are going to work.
So H-1B visas was brought up.
And how they're going to work, because they're not able to do their job farming. The farming community is having an issue because they can't find work. And my dialogue with that person was, you know what? I don't think we're training our young people on what future could be out there in farming. Our 4-H clubs have largely gone unfunded. And I don't know if that's a role that maybe we could bring that love back to even our young people. And we're doing it in every other, trade schools and everything else. I wonder if there's a way that we can work together cohesively to also bring this back front and center into our schools, because our young people need to learn how to grow our food.
Yep.
Like, this is not going to DoorDash is not going to cut it.
No.
You know what I mean?
It's not.
Well, I think that's very important. Buying local helps that, because it keeps people involved in agriculture on the local level with 4-H's and FFA and things like that. What we've seen, though, is unfortunate. Farmers don't make money and can't make money. They barely pay the bills. And at the end of the day, when they're 70 or 80 and retired, they end up with the farm paid for. And that's their asset in most circumstances that I've talked to farmers about. So I have a dairy producer, Deborah Mills, who was here. You guys met this week. Her daughter, she was going to basically let her and her son-in-law take over their dairy farm. They did it for 6 months, and she said they handed everything back to her and said, we don't want this. We can't make any money.
Right.
And
I don't see a future.
So it's indentured servitude for many of these farmers today. So we got to change the system. They can't be basically run and managed and ordered around by these big companies. And that's the only way we're going to get young people involved. They got to be able to make money.
Open the market.
Open the market. up.
Open the market.
And the more we buy local, the better off we're going to be, because you're going to get more people, in a society that can come together at local farmers markets on the weekends, things like that. Kids go with mom.
Yeah.
They may not go during the week when they're in school, and mom's gone to the grocery store, that sort of thing. So I think there's a good movement there, and a lot of opportunity there as well.
Amazing.
Well, local farms feed our local communities, and farmers are the backbone of American food. And so support your local farmers.
Absolutely. What can our viewership do to help support you and what you're doing, and where can they find out more about you? Because you are an abundance of knowledge. There's not a topic we haven't talked about.
Seriously, he's coming back. We're going to talk about all kinds of other things.
All kinds of other things, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, check out our website. So competitivemarketsaction.org is our 501c4 nonprofit. And then competitivemarkets.com is our 501c3 nonprofit. So check out those two sites. Okay. We've got action alerts there. We can do so many things, got all the bells and whistles. Also would love for folks to donate if you feel like you want to do that. We appreciate it. It helps our work here. And we actually are 100% funded by donations. The membership fees are so nominal, they don't cover any overhead.
Okay.
So all of our work here in DC is 100% funded by donations.
Wow.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Aly, before we go, we should brag a little bit that we did have a Liberty cigar while we were here.
We did.
Not here, but, and then during this trip. So why don't you go ahead and let our viewers know where they can support us
You
as
can
well.
go to libertycigars.com. They are cigars that are made here in America, but they have, for example, Abraham Lincoln has his own cigar.
His own cigar.
They come with a history lesson. They really do. The man that has created them, his name is John Adams. Go figure.
Yeah.
And he loves history, American history, and he has created a profile tobacco palette for after each founder of America, and even a Trump cigar. So go to libertycigars.com, use promo code OpenMic for 10% off, and trust me, you're gonna love these cigars. They're amazing. And they make really good gifts.
I mean, the Trump cigar sounds like it'll be huge. Bigger than ever.
We have had so much fun.
It has been a lot of fun.
So much fun. You're like a jolt of electricity to get around Marty. It's like, no, you
Who
never
needs an
sleep.
energy drink?
You don't need to sleep. Who needs an energy drink? Well, that's going to be it for us guys here today on Open Mic. Of course, our Friday edition. We're going to have a wonderful weekend. I hope you guys have a blessed weekend. Join us Monday. We'll be back with more Monday through Friday right here, 10 a.m. Eastern, Patriot TV. Until next time, keep that mic open.
Bye, guys.
What do you do when the gas is high? Inflation's up in the sky. Red hat stays on. Red hat stays on. And I don't care how they look at me in the deepest heart of a blue city. Red hat stays on. Red hat stays on. And I know when you smile, you like what you see. If you love America, you'll agree. Red hat stays on. Red hat stays on.
I've treated trauma in war zones, car accidents, backcountry rescues, you name it. And I often had to rely on inferior equipment. So when the folks at Jace Medical offered to help me build the medical kits I'd always dreamed of, I jumped at the chance. Let's start with the Jace Medic Kit. It's laid out for fast, intuitive access. It even includes a dedicated slot for the Jace case, your emergency supply of antibiotics. Next is the Jace Trauma Kit. This is for the most serious injuries, massive bleeding, chest wounds, burns, blunt trauma. We've also included a powerful lineup of over-the-counter and prescription medications. For everyday injuries, this is the Jace Aid Kit, your glove box, backpack, kitchen drawer essential. Compact, rugged, and packed with high-quality supplies. It's the first rugged kit combining prescription meds and premium first aid gear.
Visit patriot.tv/kit. That's patriot.tv/kit to get the only med kit on the market designed for real-world emergencies.
Gold IRA companies are a dime a dozen, especially in conservative media. We vetted out 34 companies and chose Augusta Precious Metals.
With the lowest across-the-board spreads in the gold IRA industry, Augusta saves Americans thousands of dollars.
They are the only major gold IRA company that has zero complaints from their customers. Zero. None.
Augusta Precious Metals does not have commissioned sales reps, which means their goals are aligned with yours.
They were the only gold IRA company that demonstrated integrity and transparency without using gimmicks.
The informative one-on-one web conferences by Augusta Precious Metals answer all of their customers' questions before they make a move.
If you're ready to learn about protecting your wealth and retirement with gold and silver, request your free gold guide from Augusta Precious Metals today.
Visit patriot.tv/gold. That's patriot.tv/gold today.